Roy Williams, writer of Antigone, in conversation with Sam Girdham, Artistic Director of Purple Theatre Company. They are in a black studio with white tape on the floor marked in a grid, with black curtains as a backdrop. Roy Williams is a black British person. They are wearing blue jeans, black trainers, a check shirt and a blue bomber jacket. They have short hair and wear glasses. Sam is a mixed heritage person in their late 40s. They've got long black hair which is piled on top of their head in a messy bun and olive skin. And they identify as gender fluid.
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
I just want to talk to you a little bit about Antigone. And I suppose the burning question, the original question is, why that particular play to adapt?
I think I chose that play because I've always been a fan of it. Well, in general, I've always been a fan of sort of Greek mythology. The simpler, the better. They just had a sort of incredible knack of sort of telling simple stories that just carry so much weight. And there's a reason why they've been told and revived and retold and revived for thousands of years, because they're good. And Antigone was just always seems to be one of my favourite plays. I just loved the simplicity of it. I just loved, it was just sort of, we all like a sort of David versus Goliath kind of a story, even though it's not quite David and Goliath, but it is about sort of, someone taking on someone else who represents a bigger, larger system, establishment, empire, whatever you want to call it. And she's lowly and she's sort of down on her own and looking up and saying, no, what you're doing isn't right. And how she protested that is in the guise of her brother in the Great Greek War, Creon stepping in to take over the Empire of Thebes, her two dead brothers lying down dead, and it's chosen that one will be buried and the other will not, because the one who wasn't buried is considered to be a traitor, and she just feels, no, I'm sorry, but that's not right. And she just kind of goes on this, I don't know if that was her intention, but she just goes on this sort of, this mission, if you want to call it that, to do what's right, do the right thing, in spite of what the state, as again, which could be, like I said, an empire or whatever, is telling her not to. These are the rules and you will follow them. And she says, no, I will not follow them, even though it means at the expense of her life. And I just love that level of simple bravery, everyday heroism, and particularly coming from a woman taking on, this powerful, almighty man that no one else would dare to cross. And she just feels, in spite of her family, where she comes from and how she's seen to be. If you know your Greek mythology, you understand who Antigone is, and so on. So she's got a lot to contend with. It's just a great story, and it's one of my favourites.
And there are some, like you say, timeless themes, things that have been told for thousands and thousands of years. For you, what did you want your audience to feel or to take away from your adaptation?
Well, when it was revealed that Marcus very much wanted me to commission the play, so obviously then I kind of really had to kind of finesse the ideas that run around in my mind and how I could adapt it. And a lot to do with just kind of a lot of plays I've written before about young people, particularly kind of young black and white working class, and how they see themselves in Britain now and how others see themselves. And also, unfortunately, how some of them are, tempted to turn to criminality. And dealing with, and the previous work I've always dealt with the circumstances. But I also came away, regardless of that, feeling this is an exciting generation of just young British people, and I always just felt if they're given the right chances, opportunities, they could be really, an amazing generation that could take this country forward. But more specifically to do with the story is, it just seemed to fit. I mean, in my version of Antigone, the character Antigone is called Tig for short, Antigone for short, and if I could just go back a little bit, the world they're living in, my universe of Thebes, is on the surface very identical to a lot to the world that young people now would identify. In my universe, Thebes is a nightclub, and the production was very modern in terms of music that we felt young people would listen to, how they spoke to each other, that kind of that hybrid of language they speak now, which is kind of sort of mixture of Cockney, patois, Americanisms. It's full of that. That's how they talk and that's how they express themselves. So I wanted to capture that and said, okay, this is the world that I think you're familiar with, that you're aware of. But for as far as the characters are concerned, it's Thebes. It's ancient Greece Thebes, but they just talk the way you talk. So that was exciting to kind of replicate that and put that in the play. And Antigone herself, I mean, she's a young black woman who sadly is seen upon by others as quite a lot of young girls of that age are seen now, kind of sexualized and considered to be yats and skets and so on, and not really sort of taken seriously. So, and I thought that was an interesting angle to give Antigone, because that just seemed to fit the character. Anyway, if you read the original text, that's not dissimilar to what she is experiencing. She's just, I know how you see of me. I know what you think of me. I'm just a worthless young woman, but that's my brother lying down there, and I'm going to fight for him. So it was an easy way to transport that into modern day to deal with Antigone, and just the modern references were in abundance, and they just seemed to. I had a lot of fun fitting the actual story into it. Really, it was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how the original Antigone and the modern day Tig are so similar,
yes.
And how we're still talking, however many years later, about women being oppressed and certain patriarchies and trying to challenge power structures in whatever form that they take.
Absolutely, and that exists in the world that those characters are very much all of what you just said. How women are seen, the patriarchy in the sort of in my knowledge of the world where the Creoles, I mean, I call him Creo for my play, where he comes from, so how he operates in the play is very sort of gang orientated. Again, it just seems it fitted in really nicely with the original text. That wasn't difficult to do. Just on the thought, Creon's a king in ancient Thebes. My Creo is a king in his world of Thebes. And I just thought it's a perfect fit. It just seems to fit there, and for me that made the play even more interesting and more compelling for me to write anyway.
Let's talk a little bit about being in the room with the director and the designer. As a writer, watching your texts come to life, what sort of challenges does that process have? I
think by the time we get into the rehearsal room, there's still challenges for everybody. I think there's less challenges for me because I've done my end of the work. I've gone away for 2 years or however long it takes to write it. And then you hand the script over to the director and the designer. And then it's their job, obviously, to kind of bring my play to life. But it's not all over. Say like you're the writer, it wouldn't be all over for you because they'll have questions. And any good writer and any good director, and I was blessed because I had amazing director in Marcus, fantastic designer in Joanna, and that was the first questions they hit me with when we started preparing it. So, okay, Roy, what's in your head? How do you see this? And that's always kind of an awkward, difficult question for a writer, particularly for me to answer, because when I was writing it, I tend to keep it quite simple, how I see the world of the stage in my head. And I try to make it simple, as easy as possible for whoever is going to direct and whoever's going to design it. And in my mind, it's kind of what I said to you before, in my mind, the world of Thebes was there. The world of Thebes is in that nightclub. That's Thebes, as far as those characters were concerned. But there's enough in there for anyone to kind of sort of make a sort of cultural modern reference. It's a nightclub. It's in a sort of VIP room. That's all I had going in my head. But I was hoping Marcus and Joanna, being who they are, would make more of that. So I've got to trust in them that they've got like they've got the know-how to kind of make it special, and my God, they did. They really, it was an amazing. And they even found bits in the play. I think I kind of almost took for granted, like the atmosphere of the gods, because again, in the original text, those characters in all Greek mythology, they feel they feel they're driven by the gods, and what the gods think of them and how the gods impact on them is a big deal to them, and that carried on forward in our modern day references, and again. Using modern day references, we're surrounded by CCTV cameras. So that wasn't difficult to kind of, they could be our gods in our world watching down on us. And that's in the text, but I think Marcus and Joanna took that stage further and really made use of CCTV in the production, because they were like the other characters. We just don't see them, but they are. And in the play itself, like the original text, there's the debate of, well, is anybody really watching us? Are the gods really there? Which I thought was an interesting conversation and debate that's not that far away from a lot of us how we feel about religion and so on. And I just thought that was really, really interesting to add it in the mix in the literal sense. But in the visual sense, I think Marcus and Joanna, they took that on board and replicated on stage, and that was a really sort of wonderful, special thing to see.
Yes, it was a beautiful production to watch, and so many levels that that the visuals reflected the themes in the piece.
That's why I felt it really very, very much so did, and it takes a good director and a good designer to do that. And how they do it is relatively simple, although it's not easy. It's just that they read the text, they read what's in front of them, and they say, okay, let's add to that, rather than sort of subtract or make it about us. It's like I said, you've got to have sort of pay full attention to what's written and respond and hope it chimes, and they both did that really extremely well.
As a writer, when you are looking in the rehearsal room at the actors bringing your words to life, as it were, for the play, how do you feel about their interpretations of some of your words, if they maybe slightly go in a different direction than what was in your head originally?
Yeah, I like to keep myself open to actors and how they interpret their words, and I think as a writer, and Antigone was a good example, you've got to give a level of trust to them, and because it's important that they make it their own, while still respecting the words that have been written, and but it's a collaborative experience. There's an old saying about a play, and with Antigone it definitely applied, is plays never finished until the last night. And I think a good actor will, look at the words, try to make them work, and the more they are, I mean, this is not a requirement. It's not a necessity. It's not a necessity or a given. If they feel, these characters are of a world I'm familiar with, or I grew up with people like this, or there's a lot of me in those characters. I think that helps. But I do believe that will only take you a certain part of the way. It's great. You feel, okay, I understand the lingo. I understand the way that character dresses, the way that character talks, and it's not that dissimilar from how I speak or how I know other people speak. And we had that in the company of Antigone. We had a lot of incredibly talented young actors, and what drew them to it was they had a sense of, we know these people, we know this world, and we feel we can do it, and because of that, I felt I could give up a little bit more trust if they could just say to me, well, it's okay if I say it that word this way, or change the phrase to this to make it feel more modern, because I think they come from a generation where the language and the way they speak always updates itself every 6 months, sometimes to start to keep up with them. But so I had to kind of think, okay, what's the latest phrase? How do you address your friends, and how do you address women and so, which was quite awkward because I'm looking for phrases that or could be seen as quite offensive or problematic. But it was necessary in order to tell the story that we wanted to tell and the world we wanted to evoke. And the actors themselves, particularly in Antigone, were fantastically helpful in that regard. And so there's a lot of work we did that in rehearsals. And but also because of, like I said, because of the lingo, they were able to get the rhythm. But I had to listen to them as well, and also make sure that the changes we made were in tone with the play that I originally written and honours the vision. So it's quite complicated. So there's a lot of things kind of going on in rehearsals, but you get the right actors, not just the good actors, but you get the right actors to do that. And we were lucky we got them. It can be quite a joyful experience, and it certainly was in there. It was a lot of hard work to be done, but it was enjoyable and but necessary and important. Just again, like I said, is one hat is okay. I've got the lingo, but I've got the character as well. So there's a lot of particularly for Savannah, who played Antigone. She had questions, and we had to help her. Just okay, where is she at in this part of the play? Where is she at in that part of the play? And how do we, drive her story, particularly?
It's quite interesting because there is a saying that when you finish writing a piece, then that's sort of the death of the writer, and it then sort of takes on a life of its own and becomes something different to everybody else.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say the death of the writer. I think the writer kind of sort of regenerates into another. So the writer goes away for a year and a half, writes, which is what I did with Antigone, and then you have to kind of almost like when you're in rehearsal, when you put on a new hat, you become more of a collaborator. You're still the writer, and still changes still kind of run by you. But there has to be, I think that there is a sense of you have to kind of give it up to the next. To them and to the next stage, because and it's an important stage because they're bringing your play to life. Those 15,000 words you wrote, they're the ones bringing it up to life. And what works on the page may not necessarily work on the stage once it's up on its feet. Most of it will. You hope it will, and most of it does work. But otherwise, there's always a few things you can do and be better. I mean, that was one of my favourite moments in Antigone. Was just watching it, just kind of think, I like what she did. I like what Mark did as Creon. I'll change that. I'll accommodate that. So just okay, change that line. Do this. Do it that way. And that's fun. I think a writer should enjoy those moments because that's what it's all about, really.
Really exciting and really great. For the audience as well, because they are you're considering them the whole time. And
definitely, and I think also because we had a I wouldn't say a knowledge, but an instinct that and also we were hoping of the kind of audience we wanted who would come and see that young people, the young people who I hope will be studying this play. Ultimately, when I wrote the play 6 years ago, and Marcus put it on, that's who it really was for. It was for that, for that group, for a young audience, really. Ultimately, we wanted to. I wanted to write a really full-length play for young people.
And you did it brilliantly.
Thank you very much.